There's a place where time no longer moves, where voices are rare, and feelings were erased from the map of the universe. No one ever came looking for Cal, no messages, no signals, just an old cabin buried in white woods. So old, it felt like the galaxy had forgotten he ever existed. But that night, as snow kept falling like a quiet, endless dream, someone found him with a knock, soft but piercing. Like the past, the future, and a silent plea had arrived at the same moment. Snow had fallen for 3 days straight. It didn't melt. It didn't stop. So white, you couldn't tell the sky from the ground. Everything blurred, like the memory of a planet that once knew how to cry. Cal sat by the fire, now just a fading ember. He hadn't spoken to anyone in 402 days. Not since Earth became a place where real emotions no longer belonged. His cabin had no signal, no address, only silence, and rotting wood. That night, as Cal split his last log, he heard it, a knock, not loud, not rushed. Just one beat, like a whisper from a dying world. Cal opened the door. Standing in the snow were 2 figures, not human, not entirely alien either. They stood still, wrapped in snowlight. Their skin shimmered faintly, pale and cold. One held the other close, both barely breathing, but their eyes deep violet. Still open, still watching him, no words were needed. Cal stepped forward, lifted them both gently, as if he'd been waiting for them his entire life. He brought them inside, placed them by the fire. Cal didn't know their names until the 3rd day. At first, they were just 2 quiet bodies lying near the fire. Skin pale and grayish blue, eyes open slightly. No words, no pleading. Just lying there as if they had to die, they wanted to do it near the warmth. Cal sat across from them. He didn't ask questions, didn't try to figure them out. He had learned something over time. Sometimes silence is the kindest language one soul can offer another. At dawn, when the sky was still colored in heavy gray, the older one moved first. Rhea, just a name, soft as a final breath. Cal didn't respond, he just nodded. Then the younger one whispered, "Anael." Her voice rough, not from the cold, but from not being allowed to speak her own name for far too long. The next day, they sat up, hands reaching for the warmth of the fire, like children discovering heat for the first time. Rhea looked around the cabin. Her eyes paused at the oil lamp, the wooden walls, the weathered hands of Cal peeling a potato by the fire. Nail didn't take her eyes off a pair of gloves hanging on the wall. She touched them gently, as if trying to confirm they were real. "You live here alone?" A simple question, but it took Cal a few seconds to answer. "Yeah," for a long time. Rhea spoke again, her voice so soft that Cal leaned in to catch it. "We come from a place where feelings are treated like a disease, where a smile is seen as a system error, where anyone who loves gets reprogrammed." Nail added quietly, "We stole air to breathe, and then we ran." Cal set the knife down. He didn't ask what their planet was called. He didn't need to. Their eyes had said enough. That small cabin, once Cal's fortress of solitude, had become a quiet stop for 3 souls the world had no place for. They lived together like a family, even if no one ever said it out loud. Rhea hung wet towels near the fire, her movement slow, steady, as if performing an old ritual. Nail cleared frost from the windows, not to see the outside, but to let light fall back in. Cal started cooking more than just one portion. They didn't talk about the future. No one mentioned leaving. But every night, as snow continued to fall, a quiet truth settled in the room. The cabin used to be a place where Cal came to forget, but by the 5th day of snow, he realized he was starting to remember. Not memories, but small, very human sensations he had buried long ago. The clink of a spoon stirring soup, the smell of dried leaves burning in the stove, the sound of footsteps so light it was like snow learning how to walk. Nail climbed the roof using an old wooden ladder. In her hand were tiny crystal beads, glimmering like stars that had lost their way. She hung them along the rafters, around the porch, on bare tree branches outside the window. They gave off a soft, bluish light. Gentle. Not dazzling, but too tender to ignore. Cal didn't ask why, but Nail spoke anyway, her voice like a lullaby carried by the wind. Back home, whenever we survived something, we planted a star, to thank the ground for not turning against us. Rhea used a wooden knife to carve symbols into the doorframe, not to lock anything out, but to remember. This is a safe mark, she said. We used to carve it into rock, into trees, even into our own bones, so that anyone running after us would know this place was once gentle. Cal didn't fully understand the symbols, but he let them be. Because for the first time, the cabin was glowing from within. That night, they ate root stew by the fire. Nail hummed a melody without words. Rhea used her breath to melt the frost on the window glass. Cal added more wood to the stove. It crackled like laughter finally coming home. You know, Rhea said softly. On our planet, laughter is stored like toxic data. It disrupts the obedience protocol. Cal didn't know whether to be angry or heartbroken. He just said, "Then laugh here. This cabin doesn't have any code." The night grew thicker. Snow kept falling, but the light inside the cabin, from Nail's glowing stars, from the flicker, that night started like every other. Snow kept falling. The cabin glowed soft and warm. Nail was carefully stacking firewood into a basket. Rhea was mending the seam on Cal's old coat, not because it was needed, but because the thread had worn thin. Cal was about to make another pot of tea, steeping roots over the fire. Then the sky changed. It wasn't lightning, it was a red streak across the clouds, sharp, sudden, like the sky had been cut open by war. All sound stopped. Even the snow seemed to freeze in midair. A black ship emerged from the low clouds. No signal, no warning lights. It moved silently. Not like a machine, but like a judgment. Cal didn't need to ask. Rhea had already stood. Her hand gripped the table. Her voice didn't shake. But her eyes did. The hunters. Cal moved without a word. He opened the trapdoor beneath the firewood bin. A hidden hatch, once meant for floods. Now for something worse, enemies with wings, with scanners, with orders to erase. Go, one word from him. They didn't hesitate. Nail pulled a small crystal from under her collar. It looked like a teardrop, but inside it swirled with threads of light. Memory pulse, she whispered. It won't stop them, but it might confuse them long enough. She placed the crystal on the dirt floor. A blue light spread from it, not bright, but soft like winter's last breath. It rose across the walls, the ceiling, their faces, then darkness. Above ground, the hunters arrived. They didn't knock. They scanned, infrared, sound pulses, heat seekers, technology built to find life and end it. The cabin lit up in their vision, then vanished. No life, no warmth, no trace. They stayed exactly 143 seconds, then left. Below, no one spoke. Cal rested one hand on an old rifle, the other on a wooden beam. Rhea curled up, head on her knees. Nail breathed slowly, watching the last shimmer of blue fade from the ceiling. Like stars, the snow hadn't stopped by morning. But for the first time in years, the cabin wasn't cold. Not because of firewood, but because of something invisible that had sparked between three souls. who shared nothing in common, except the will to survive together. Rhea and Nail called Cal outside. The snow fell gently. The sky was gray and dull, no sun, just a faded light like a forgotten memory. Nail opened her hand. Inside was a small stone, no bigger than a fingertip. It was made of two curved pieces that fit together, like halves of a heart split long ago. The token, Rhea said, it's only given to someone who protects without needing a reason, not for duty, not for reward, only for those who open their door when the whole world shuts it. Cal didn't know what to say. He looked at the stone. It didn't glow. It didn't move. It simply waited, as if it already knew the role he hadn't yet accepted. He reached for it, his hand trembled, and in that moment, he was no longer Cal the loner, not the man who had buried his feelings in snow. He became the one whom two lives had trusted without question. "I'm not a hero," he said. Nail smiled. "We never asked you to be. We just needed to know," Rhea added, "that when the sky exploded, someone out there would still open the door." That night, Cal placed the token on the mantle, between an old photo and a chipped cup. He didn't know what it was made of, didn't know how two halves could fit so perfectly, but he knew one thing: if this cabin was still standing, then it stood for something that could be trusted. For the first time, he knew what it felt like to be needed, not to fix things, not to answer questions, but to simply be there and quietly guard the 3 nights later, the snow stopped. The sky was clear, but not beautiful. There was a strange silence, like even the air was holding its breath. Rhea felt it first. She froze while wiping the window. "Someone's here," she said quietly. "But it's not a regular hunter. This feels higher." Cal had just set a log on the fire when the cabin trembled, not from an earthquake, not from wind, but from the weight of something powerful. Landing at his door, he opened it. Standing there was a tall woman in silver armor, cold and sharp as a blade in moonlight. She carried no weapon, but each step cracked the snow beneath her, like breaking bones. She didn't give her name, didn't explain. She simply said, "Give them back, or this cabin will burn with your memories." Cal stepped forward. He wore no armor, only an old sweater, worn at the collar, stitched at the sleeve. No weapons, just eyes that refused to look away. "Then burn me first." The armored woman paused, not in surprise, but because she saw something her entire system had never learned to measure. A human, not programmed to love, but standing between warmth and destruction. By choice. She moved closer. Rhea and Nail stood behind the doorframe, watching. The woman didn't raise a weapon. She just placed her hand on Cal's chest, not as a strike, but as a gesture, from a time when humans still knew how to feel. Then she whispered, maybe only to herself, "You carry something this galaxy has tried to erase for centuries, a warmth that doesn't belong to commands." She turned and left. No threats, just a warning that lingered in the snow. Others will come, and they won't just burn your cabin. They'll try to burn the very thing that made you believe you could live. Cal stood at the door for a long time, watching the emptiness where her ship had vanished. After the night, they met the woman in silver armor. Silence returned, but it wasn't the heavy kind that came from fear. It was gentle, like the first breath after a long nightmare. The sisters stayed. No discussions, no need for permission. They stayed as if they had never left, as if the cabin had always belonged to them, and Cal was simply meant to open the door. Nail began planting glowing star crystals around the cabin. Tiny lights, half buried in the ground, flickered softly like whispered thank yous. "This is how my people remember places that protected us," she said. "They grow when there is love, and fade when the fire inside someone's heart goes out. Rhea made soup with glowing roots, vegetables she had hidden since the days they fled. Each time she stirred, the color shifted, from soft blue to warm pink, like a heartbeat learning to feel again. She pinned little glowing flowers onto the wooden walls, right next to the cracks, as if she was healing the past, not erasing it, just holding it gently. Cal chopped wood for 3, each swing steady. For the first time, there was a quiet smile on his face. Not the smile of a hero, but of a man who realized he was holding something precious, without needing to grip it tightly. One morning, with mist still on the window glass, Nail rested her head on his shoulder. She whispered, "We don't want to run anymore. Not because the world out there is safer, but because this place feels enough to call home." Rhea opened her hand. Inside was the completed token, the two halves perfectly joined. No cracks, no seams, like the 3 of them had quietly become one. "You don't have to keep us," Rhea said, "but you made this place a home. And no one had to teach you how." Cal didn't say anything right away. He stepped forward, gently placed the token on the wooden shelf, right between the fireplace and the front door. For the first time, in a world that once froze, chased, and rejected them, they weren't together just to survive. They were here to exist, as something beautiful. That could never be programmed. Outside, the warship still flew, silent, without faces. They cut across the sky like silver scratches on a cold mirror. The system still scanned, still searched, still hunted for heat, brain waves, or any unfamiliar breath. But inside a small cabin buried in snow, something had quietly taken root. It didn't glow, it didn't call attention, it didn't show up on any map. It was Nail's quiet laugh when she dropped a glowing star into the soup. It was Rhea hanging the token in the corner like a sacred charm. It was the look in Cal's eyes. No longer tired, no longer alone. As he chopped wood for them, there was no rebellion, no grand victory, just a quiet return to life. Born from kindness with no reason, from warmth with no name, and the system could scan everything, but it couldn't scan this. A hug without command, a glance without transaction, a presence not built to serve, but to stay. Inside that cabin in the White Woods, something uncodable had taken its first breath. Not loud, not glorious, but strong enough to restart a universe. And if someone ever asked what it was called, Cal would look out at the snow, smile for the first time like a child, and whisper, "I don't know its name."